Slow down doesn't mean stop,
Yeah,
but it means at least having
absolutely.
15 minutes to stop, slow down, reflect, catch our breath, bring the pace down so that we're actually able to become aware of all that is, whether it is
Mm,
ourself, whether it is the environment, or as we call the system that we're in,
yeah.
whether it's relational and the people that we're around and in connection with, in deep connection with. Hi, I'm Jennifer Britton, and welcome to the Coaching Money Podcast. I've been on a mission for the last 20 years to expand the coaching conversation to many. Along with my co-host, Evana, we're going to be exploring coaching as it relates to conversations, connection, and change in both personal and professional settings. Coaching Money is about creating empowering and thought-provoking spaces for conversation which strengthen relationships and enhance results. Throughout the Coaching Money podcast, we'll share tools, practices, and approaches to support you in your conversations, one dialogue at a time. All right. Wow. Here we are for another episode. We are now into our episode on awareness. And I am really looking forward to this one because I think as we record this at the end of summer 2024, such an important topic. And it has been ever since I became a mentor coach in 2007. When I asked
Mm,
coaches, hey, what do you want to focus on? Almost, I would say 75 to 80% of the time, coaches say, you know what, I can nail all of these other competencies, Jen, but coaching for awareness, or what we now call evoking awareness, is my stretch. How about you, Ivana? What do you think? What do you think about awareness and coaching?
yeah. Well, I resonate with what you were saying just now because even if I look back at my growth edge and where my range as a coach really needed to be developed and where I put a lot of focus, which has in turn become one of my strengths, is awareness. And if we think about it, like it's not, it's something that we all have, our intuition. And I'm going to like share, like society also kind of discounts that. Like, we put so much emphasis on the mind or the doing of stuff that we lose sight of, like, hold on, are we actually pausing? Are we taking a moment to see how what we're actually considering or what we are doing, how that actually affects us, how that affects the people around us, or we call the system, whether it be in
Mm.
a family system, a team system, whatever system. And so awareness, I think for me is fundamental as a coach, for us as a coach, as much as it is fundamental for us to create that space or that container for our participants to take that moment of space and pause. And I'm going to say this, I think it's relevant whether you're around your kitchen table and with your family, or if you're around the boardroom, or you just have a group and people are wanting to explore a specific topic in a theme, but are we allowing that? And I think that's huge. And I think so would you agree with me? Like that's, I think, another differentiator when it comes to that coaching many conversation from the facilitation and training. Like,
Absolutely. We've got to be directed by where the clients want to go. And in order to explore awareness, we've got to slow it down as well, right?
yeah,
There's a very different energy between the action that we talked about in our last podcast to awareness. And as coaches, I'm reflecting back to, many years ago with, my own coach development. I'm a type
mhm,
A. I love to get things done, but if I'm not slowing down, even in micro windows, right? Like
yeah,
slow down doesn't mean stop,
yeah,
but it means at least having
absolutely.
15 minutes to stop, slow down, reflect, catch our breath, bring the pace down so that we're actually able to become aware of all that is, whether it is
Mhm,
ourself, whether it is the environment, or as we call the system that we're in,
yeah,
whether it's relational and the people that we're around and in connection with, in deep connection with.
yeah.
So I think, I'm excited for all of us to dive into this topic today. And I want to just put out this question to all our listeners is, what does awareness mean for you?
Mm,
And what's the metaphor? Let's actually get them to think about a metaphor. What is the metaphor that embodies or captures the essence of awareness. And
Mm.
I'm gonna do something that probably is a faux pas in podcasting world, but I'm gonna give us 15 seconds to actually close our
Beautiful.
eyes, turn inwards, and think about what is the metaphor that captures the essence of awareness. Enjoy the silence for 15 seconds.
Mm.
And I'll invite you to open your eyes. Now, before we even say anything else, I want to invite you as a listener to think about what was that silence like?
Mhm.
Was it comfortable? Was it too short? Was it too long? What was it like? And I think if you are a coach, probably you might be saying, oh, wasn't long enough. But for some listeners, this might have been uncomfortable. So awareness is, I think, in much of Western society, something that is just often pushed to the corner. Oh yeah, I'll get to it. It's another thing on the list
Yeah.
rather than being an integral part of our day. So I hope that you as a listener will enjoy this. Let's open it up. Like share with us. And I would love for you, Evana, like what metaphor came up for you as you thought about the whole essence of awareness?
Yeah. Thanks. So for me, it was just being at the sea. So for me, a lot of awareness is like the mindfulness piece. So like the senses, tapping into, what what's around me, like, and even connecting, how does that connect to me and where I am, and how does that connect to even the experiences or the sensations I'm having in my body? So it kind of brings outside world with inside world
Mhm.
and go, oh, just to allow to slow the mind down, you know, to be able just to be with whatever is and it be okay. To me, that's what awareness is. It's a doorway to pause and reflect.
Love that.
How about you, Jen? What about you?
So it's a joint metaphor, right? So I pictured myself sitting at the river, right? And like you, right? It's about water, it's about nature, but having my journal open and a pen
Mm,
nearby. So I think for me, awareness is also, and I think this is an important element for us to touch on today,
mhm.
we all process the world in different ways. Coaching is a very verbal modality, yet are we also creating moments of awareness using different modalities? And as you know, I'm really the last 5 years have been very keen on exploring not visual facilitation. Well, it's called visual facilitation, which is all about
Mhm.
writing and drawing and creating awareness in that vein. So, yeah, awareness to me, it definitely many layers to this. It can be somatic and enjoying the
Yeah,
sunshine on my face, but
yeah,
also enjoying the silence and
yeah.
the magic that shows up as a writer when I put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. So
Mm,
how,
yeah.
for our listeners, what emerged for you? We'd love to hear from you because I'm sure there are many different layers to this whole exploration.
Can I add something with what you were
Absolutely.
saying and building in something? I think really the essence of awareness is supporting a space to be able to connect with self. And for you, the connection with self involves a journal and a pen and paper because that's one of your self expressions of, you know, how you discover, like that self discovery through journaling. For me, a lot of it is anchored in nature. And so even just tasting the sea salt, hearing
Yes.
the wind and the breeze allows me just to kind of calm, be centered, be grounded.
Mhm.
And so, what I invite the listeners to think of, even for you, like, what is it for you to be able to be present, whether it be, as Jen uses, a journal prompt, whatever that is, but also, what does that look like for your development. And again, always, and maybe I'm going too fast and too far, Jem, with this, but like even in that coaching conversation, right? What does awareness look like? Because I think I'm going to say this, I think there's a myth around, we think as, and I loved what you said earlier, like we think it means stopping, like awareness, like, and a lot of people are uncomfortable in that idea of, I remember even as a new coach, and we do mentor coaching, we do supervision at Potentials Realized, but it's like helping people connect to their own selves and how they show up. Like I can relate even my development as a coach, like being comfortable in the space of no words. I remember my first coach training. The head coaches said to me, Ivana, what is your relationship to silence? You know? And I invite all of you, if you are one of those people who are so in your go, 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 or you find yourself even in any conversation around the kitchen table or in the boardroom or whatever, if you find yourself very uncomfortable in that space of silence, pause, unknown, however you want to say it, like that's an invitation for you to explore, to slow down, and whether it be journal or walk or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
There's
I'm
a
saying a
lot.
lot because
There's a lot.
as you can see, I'm so passionate about this topic. I could talk about this till the cows come home.
Absolutely. And just to sort of spotlight those layers, right? It is somatic. It is about being here now. It is about the world of the grounded labyrinth. As for those that are familiar with our superpower quiz,
Mhm.
it's also, we want to bridge back to intentionality. A few episodes ago, we talked
Thank
about
you.
intentionality. What is my intention? And we've been talking a lot about ourselves as coach, but what about with our clients? Let's like sort of
Yeah.
shift the flow a little bit because we have competencies, we have presence, but it's so critical that we leave space in our conversations for awareness when we are sitting with
Mhm.
a one on one client, we're with a group, we're with a team. And one thing that really got me intrigued based on what you just said was, you know, what awareness is created when we move, right? One of the challenges of the last few years has been how do we make the virtual space that much more mobile? And it's
Mhm.
interesting, this summer I've been doing quite a bit. Actually, up here, there's a beautiful waterfall. So last Friday, I took one of my groups out. I said, show up at the Zoom line, and we actually went on a walk. Went on a walk through
Mm,
the woods as part of our
beautiful.
work. So, don't feel that you need to be constrained in creating awareness. Like I think my theme, my mantra for
Yeah.
today is like, what
Yeah.
are the ways that we can be innovative in creating micro pause, micro experiences? Because that's what our clients want. And yet they may not
Mhm.
be comfortable with it. It may not be seen as valuable or valid, even.
Absolutely.
I think about a lot of what my organizational clients are experiencing now. They're being asked or even ordered to go back into the office because
Yeah.
the perception is you're more effective here. Well, how do we come together and create what only awareness can create? I think there's a piece of joy,
Mhm.
there's a piece of sadness. Like we need to help people be in the moment, whether they are in their seat or they're able to have flexibility in terms of how and where they're working. So I say this
Yeah.
in only to really plant the seed for innovation because I think awareness doesn't have a great rep or
Yeah.
reputation, right? That's short for reputation. And it may, there's a continuum like anything. We talk a lot about
Yeah.
continuums here, right? It's the continuum of I'm going to go and meditate. Well, for a
Yes.
corporate team, it's not about meditation. It's about having a daily practice of 15 minutes of coming together in your huddle and pausing to look at what's working, what's not, what's getting in our
Mhm.
way. That's a whole other layer of awareness as well. So I just want you each to be thinking about what does awareness really mean in our realm? And that might take us into a bit of a let's talk a little bit about some of the tools we have in our toolkit as we shift our focus from us and how we generate awareness to how we do our work with clients in activating or evoking, as
Yeah.
ICF has framed it now, awareness. So, what's one of your favorite coaching tools to evoke awareness, Ivana?
Yeah. Well, I think the body is just fundamental in the awareness space. Oftentimes we think that our mind knows, what is best. And it does. There's a layer of that, but it's that whole mind, body, spirit piece. Like, how do we integrate all aspects of self? How do we bring that alignment, that congruency? How can we even, you're talking about, some people might be really uncomfortable in the awareness. And me saying body, people might go, oh, whoa, right? Like hold, like put the brakes on. But when I'm talking about body, and I've dealt with this with many of my clients, is really, again, it's that whole premise of meet them where they are. So we have to be really present to meet them where they are, but we also need to have that presence of, you know what, with understanding the dynamic of the person and their goals and what they want. Oftentimes, I do this all the time in group coaching in our training program is, where are you in this spectrum, but where do you see your clients to be, like helping even our coaches connect to where do you see your clients to be? Because that's that edge, that's the growth. And for me, the body can be as easy as like noticing gesture changes, noticing shifts in body, noticing when people are moving in, like that, that interest. Like it doesn't need to be, and I'm going to say this, and I don't, it's woo, but some might call it woo woo. But again, that's where we have to really understand, because the body is one layer of our true intelligence and wisdom. And the more we disconnect from it, I'm going to assert, the more we're actually making incongruent choices that leaves us, wondering, why did I do that?
Yes. Yes.
It's, so the body is a beautiful resource.
Mhm.
And I know Amy Cuddy talks about this in her work. And even we talk about Marlena Field in the world of body somatics. She's an accredited coach who also offers training in this line of work. But it's another tool. And if you even look at the competencies, it actually speaks to the fact of part of our listens actively is not only listening to the words, it's not only listening to the tone, but also noticing what the body is communicating. And I think as a coach, we are doing our clients a service in support of allowing them just to have access, inviting them to have access to the point that they're comfortable. Because I know my life has shifted, and a lot of my clients' lives, we're really building that intuition. And that is part of self-awareness.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things as coaches we're asked to develop. And so I think it's extended to beyond us and in the conversation of our participants, even in a group coaching or team coaching context, very gently, again, knowing who's in the conversation and where their comfort is.
Yeah. And I think definitely for some of you might be like, absolutely. And others might be like, that would never fly in my corporate arena.
Yeah.
Whoa. So again, principle that we always espouse here at Potentials Realized and the whole group coaching essentials and effective group coaching is meet clients where they're at, right? We cannot and we should not take people out of their comfort zone extremely, right? That is actually detrimental. We want to work within that comfort zone. And in a group and team setting, right, in organizations, or maybe you're working with leaders, some of this might be a super stretch. So you need to look at what is comfortable and how do we build it? And beyond the somatic approach, even though that's very important, there's so much wisdom there.
Yeah.
Like even just helping teams understand where they're at. And
Yeah.
I want to sort of spotlight part of awareness, right? Like a lot of coaches are very um, and I think a lot of organizations are very assessment hungry and like, hey, tell us who we are. Well, is that a coaching approach? No, we want you to identify who you are. And that's where we may bring in a tool like it could be a wheel of life, a wheel of leadership. If you're working with teams, it could be the 6 factors of high performing
Yeah.
teams that I created, where I get teams to self identify on a
Yeah.
1 to 10. Where are you in this area? That is so much more powerful than if I'm coming in with, say, a strengths finder. Even as a Gallup certified strengths coach, like really fascinating, important tool, but it's a very different stance if people learn about themselves versus being told about themselves. And so I
Beautiful.
just want coaches to notice you don't have to go out and get accredited or certified in yet another assessment. While that's great, what do you have at your disposal already? How do you go back to the basics, like the wheel of
Mhm.
blank, and create the space for clients themselves on a one-on-one group or team level to identify where they're
Mhm.
at in this moment in time?
Yeah.
Because if we say it, we own it, right? If someone else
Yeah.
tells me, I'm not going to own that, especially if I disagree with it.
Yeah.
Don't agree. And that can just add more conflict to already might be a conflict rich arena and a low trust
Yeah.
arena. So in choosing something, think about trust, think about connection. That's been another sort of focus of ours in this
Absolutely.
episode.
Absolutely. If I may add too, I think what's really something that we do have to consider is, you know, because we talk about like we're in times of change. Like even you were saying, like people are being asked to go back to work. Like there's a lot of things that are being imposed or the perception that things are being imposed on us. So there's a lot of change, even the political sphere. The reality of the world right now is just very much in change and chaos. And I think part of our role as coaches is to really help people connect to who they are, you know?
Coaching
Like,
teams
and
through chaos, my TED talk
yeah,
2 years ago.
exactly,
It's like,
exactly, right? And
who
so
knows?
yeah, you and your 6 factors of high performing teams, which has come through hours and years of you be working with teams, has been able to kind of highlight these as doorways, as access points. But ultimately, you and me and our listeners really need to say, like, what are those resources or tools that can support our participants to really connect to who they are and what's going to support them through this change, through
Yes.
this chaos. Because I know a lot of the women that I work with in the relationship dynamic or evolution of relationship transition, or we'll just broaden it, of life change. A lot of them come and they don't know who they are.
Yes.
And they've been playing a role. They've been playing an identity as a mother, a wife, and you don't have to go through a divorce, like even empty nesting. So a lot, or someone who's been in a high performing role in an organization and now is
Mhm.
downshifting, based on health, based on needs. Like it's how can we support people to connect to who they are, and we have tools as like you said, the wheel. We have values, right? Values is a great resource to help people connect to who they are so they can start making choices that align with who they are. So I talked about somatics, we talked about tools, but there's also a spectrum of like visual cards,
Yeah.
is these micro moments. And what I really want to just kind of highlight, if I may, is the fact that, with your body of work, and I want to highlight this, is there's so many different access points, to be able to connect to who you are as a coach, whether it be through supervision, whether it be superpower deck, whether it be the assessment, because even the assessments we offer are just, it's a door opening. It doesn't define who you are. Then you have to assess for yourself what is true, what can I use with this? And just like we're
Mhm.
saying that of ourselves, that's what we're invited to do in a coaching mini conversation. And I'm going to make it because I do a lot of personal coaching, relationship coaching, is even around your kitchen table. Who are you as as the breadwinner? And what does that change and shift if you're the breadwinner and a female and your partner and spouse isn't? Like, who are you? How do you show up? Who do you want to be? Right? We've said it a few times, but it is that be, do, have. Look,
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of us chase the outcomes that we want. And when we have these outcomes, then we'll do what we want to do. We'll take that vacation and then we'll be happy. It's actually flipping it. And what I love about another piece of your body work is that, that the underneath the waterline as coaches,
Mhm.
right? Are we helping people connect to who they are as it relates to their subconscious mind?
Yeah. Their
You know,
mindset. And if I
mindset.
may, I'm going to interrupt here,
Yeah.
right? Because I think
Yeah, go for it.
from an awareness perspective, right? It's so subconscious, unconscious, often elements that do influence heavily. I was going to say drive, right? But that's a very action oriented, but they influence our choices. They influence, they're constantly running in the background, whether, it is the saboteur, the inner critic, whether it is
Yeah.
the future self. So I also want to, one of the interesting things that I've been looking at this summer in my work and my writing is really, what is that inner voice? And there's a lot to be said about imposter syndrome. About 80% of people are run by that, but
Yeah.
20% of us are actually pulled forward by our vision. And so I'm really keeping an eye on, I know this episode is going to come out in September, but change is everywhere. And I think a big
Mm-hmm.
theme for most of us in 2024 is, how do we continue to thrive in an arena of change where maybe every day, every month, we might be in a different location working. We might
Yeah.
be having to reiterate our practices and our habits, and that can fundamentally shake you. And we also have control over how do we choose to approach it, right? I think there's a choice point here. So getting back to what's below the waterline, what is your mindset? Are you really exploring and embodying open mindset, growth mindset, or are you
Mm-hmm.
naturally also falling into closed mindset? Because
Yeah.
this takes energy. This takes energy. And so to me, this connects in with resilience. It connects in with
Absolutely.
renewal. It connects in with
Yep.
practices to help you operate at your best. And the awareness may also be what you need to say no to, in addition to
Yeah.
saying yes. And I think that's a really important one
Absolutely.
in times of change. Now, in saying no, there could be little no's and there could be big no's. We're seeing resistance to people going back into the office. As all of us probably at some point in our careers have said no, like this is not what
Yeah.
is my next chapter. And that's a choice. And the choice means that there is going to be weight, there are going to be decisions. It may be easy, it might be
Yeah.
challenging, but if we can live by what we're anchored by, our values, then it
Bang
makes
on.
that much easier. But again, if we're constantly running, if we're on that treadmill, whether it's self-imposed or imposed by circumstances, we may not
Mm-hmm.
see that we're on the treadmill. We may not see
And I
it.
think that's the essence, Jen. I think that's the essence. If there's a nugget that I'm really getting, and even like what you're saying is like, as a coach,
Mhm.
are you allowing that space for people to reconnect to their essence so they can make,
Yeah.
because a lot of the time in times of chaos, in times of change, fear comes up. And so oftentimes our choices are not actually made based on who we are. They're
Yeah.
made on what the fear of what might happen or whatever it is. So it is very important for each of us, for ourselves, but also for the space that we hold for our participants to really allow that pause, that space for people to go, oh, this is what's important.
Mhm.
Oh, if I take into consideration this, you
Yes.
know, if I take into consideration who I am or what my vision, you talked about, 80% of people are really, run by their imposter, which really at the end of
It
the
is
day, that just
fear-based.
heightens.
So
Yeah,
it's
it's
fear.
fear based
It's fear-based. Yeah. Yeah.
as opposed to grounded in your values,
Mhm.
grounded in your vision. And we talk meditation of grounding and like that. Some might say, "Ooh, that," but these are tools that coaches we have at our fingertips. So you don't need to. You can offer meditation as a grounded labyrinth. I often do it even in our practicum program. If
Yeah.
there's a discombobulation, I just invite people to come in. So you have to read the room. You need to recognize what's needed, but it's our role, it's our responsibility to really allow that space of pause so people can get anchored in who they are and make those choices when
Mhm.
they, especially in times of change and chaos. So they're making them empoweredly, not out of fear.
Yeah.
So they actually can connect to who they are and reconnect to their identity and what's really important, what really matters. So that way they can take action. Like I love what you said. You can't just sit in awareness. I've done it. It doesn't work. It's not helpful. It
So it
doesn't
needs
work.
to always be a
However,
balance. It needs to be an
there
and.
needs to be a balance. And that's why last call, we'll say, or last episode, we
Our
did that
bridge.
bridge,
Yeah.
right? Was episode 8 is really around what is that bridge?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you can't do one without the other. They very
No.
much go hand in hand.
And to sort of bring this episode to a pause, not a close,
Yeah.
because we hope that this is going to percolate with you on so many levels. You talked a few minutes ago about just the groundedness and as coaches, but I want to bring it back to leaders, right? I want people to be
Thank you.
noticing the most effective leaders right now. Think about how they show up. Notice how they are grounded. It's not just what they're saying, it's how they are saying it.
Yeah.
And those folks have done years, lifetimes of exploration. And exploration means we're pulling ourselves outwards again,
Yeah.
right? Like we're constantly looking in and out and it should never end. It truly should never end.
Yeah.
Just like our learning as coaches should never end.
Yeah.
But notice the body language, right? Like this has been for me as a former diplomat, as the work that I do with leaders, it's
Hmm.
not just about delivering a message. It's about delivering a message with impact, which brings us back to our core. It talks to values, it
Hmm.
talks to stance. There's a whole series of layers. And so notice that. And I think, even in our own mindset, what are the blinders we've put on ourselves? How are we seeing the
Hmm.
world in one way? In this episode, we have touched on everything from be do have to somatics. We've talked about high performing teams and wheels and embodiment and values and mindset. Like there are so many layers to this work. So pick one, right? Pick one. And if anything, maybe you grab that journal every 15 minutes a day. Maybe you pick up a new deckable deck, whether it's a superpower deck or the new 30-day guide deck. It's about creating pause and a practice of the pause every day or regularly. So,
And I'm going to
Evana,
add, it's also, if I may, Jen, is what works for one is not going to
amen.
work for everyone. And you want to be thinking about that even when you're in the conversation. And I know we're wrapping up, but I think this is fundamental to say, like, what works for one doesn't work for everyone. So when you're creating even your container, your design, we cover this in Group Coaching Essentials, right? How do you actually allow people to take that pause? What are the different ways you can do that, right? We model it, but we also teach principles to support that space of pause. And there is design in that. It just doesn't
Huge.
happen.
No, it's
And
not.
it just doesn't happen. And what works for me doesn't work for you. And so you need to think about the dynamics of people,
Yeah.
because just because as a coach for me, one thing works doesn't mean it's going to work that way for everyone.
Well, you've given a brilliant sort of entree and overview of courses 4 and 5 of our pathway to certification as group and team coaches. Number one, activate your superpowers. Who are you? But more importantly, which we haven't talked a lot about, we'll do future
Yeah.
episodes on this. Who is the client? And what is the diversity that
Yeah.
exists within that group or team? I have to say, as people will listen in, and hopefully you go and listen to Coaching Teams Through Chaos, my second TED Talk, because I talk about
Mhm.
the hybrid work styles. It doesn't matter whether you are in a hybrid world or not. Our work styles and our workplace preferences are so dramatically different. So when we step
Mhm.
in for a coaching conversation, if you're meeting resistance, it may be because you're not using the diverse approaches that the people in the room are seeing the world through. So more
Yeah.
on that later, but I have to say I am looking forward. We're doing a Friday cohort this fall and an intensive around coaching diverse teams and groups, which talks to this and all the bridges that we've been talking about. So Ivana, is there a final inquiry we want to leave people with?
I'm going to bridge the action and awareness of, what is something you can do to create pause, for yourself. And also, what is one thing that you can do with everything that we talked about today and what you already have in your toolbox? Because we really stand that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, that you can take right away and integrate. Because this is where it's great that we've shared all these awareness ideas and options, but it's now about actual integration. So what can you do? That to me is the inquiry.
Love it. Well, think about essence, think about core, all the layers, and yeah, what is anchoring you at the end of the day? So we look forward to seeing you soon. I will spotlight that our first call of September 2024 community call is going to be about embodiment. So deeply in the same theme. Uh, This episode is coming out around the same week, so maybe you joined us live or not. If you weren't able to make it, check it out on our YouTube channel at Effective Group Coach. And with that, fall programming starts. Hope that you will join us. If you're not listening to this in fall of 2024, most of our programs start every 2 to 3 months. So join us if you really want to take a deeper dive into coaching groups and teams, which of course is what Coaching Many it's all about. All right, be well, everyone. Take care. We'll see you at our next episode.